Hello and welcome to the Raw Preview. I'm Adam Wilbourn from WhatCulture, joined by the Dadley Boyz of WhatCulture, Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick, here to preview tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from for daily wrestling podcasts where we review Raw, SmackDown, soon to be AEW stuff as well. Pay-per-views, we have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. You doing the Orange Cassidy?
Why I?
Yes. So yes, Monday Night Raw tonight. Not a great deal to get that excited about. We have the King of the Ring quarterfinals, the return of Rey Mysterio, and a follow-up from Sasha Banks. But the first question I want to sort of start us off with is, do you think tonight WWE may react to AEW? Because this obviously comes hot on the heels of AEW's All Out this weekend.
You mean by putting on a show in which the wrestlers are allowed to express themselves or anything? Probably not, no. I do anticipate a subtle dig because there was a skateboard with thumbtacks. There was the most ridiculous ladder bump I think I might have ever seen. So I'm pretty sure that if, Ricochet and Joe, if that at some point really gets going, which I don't think it did on pay-per-view, so I'm not that interested. If it really gets going, Corey Graves is probably going to say something like, oh, this is really pure, technical, great wrestling, not unlike, the blood and guts of the competition. A snidey remark, maybe.
You say subtle dig. The last time WWE were expected to follow up, Sami Zayn sat in an electric chair and said, ask me about AEW. So maybe they'll get So maybe Baron Corbin will sit in a throne again and drone on for 10 minutes.
What was that segment called?
The electric
chair with Sami Zayn.
Watch out, AEW, watch out.
And it's when they go on SmackDown Fist, they'll write the creative and make SmackDown good again. I'll just get the electric chair back.
More 24/7 title will be the response to AEW. I think just more of the one thing that people actually genuinely like. They'll panic a little bit and they'll be like, oh, there's positivity about everything other than this show. We best give them loads and loads and loads of things they want. So there'll be 8 segments. They'll have ran the joke into the ground again by the end of it.
Yeah, it's always intriguing this when they come off the back of each other, and especially as now we're, a month away from AEW's TV launch. And I'm intrigued to see whether or not WWE will start hyping NXT stuff as well, because obviously that is their competition.
What they should do is, they've tried this in the past with little success, but they should have an NXT showcase match. Say, right, here's an awesome worker from NXT that you are going to get familiar with. Here's another one, and here they are going absolutely flat out at NXT speed for 15 minutes. That, for me, would be the perfect thing. Get Riddle on Raw, surprise appearance, total banger of a match that he's more than capable of pulling off, and instantly he'll set the world abuzz. It's a surprise. It's something awesome. It's a shot fired in response to AEW. I would love to see that.
I'm actually quite curious at the moment to know exactly how much Vince McMahon might be asking about NXT or inquiring with Triple H about who have we got and where are we up to and where's my 8x10s, pal, and all that sort of thing. Because NXT, since a really ropey takeover, has recovered with a couple of really good weeks of television. It was pretty strong before takeover, and yet the takeover was a bit of a shoddy effort. So I feel like they're trying to gain the momentum back ahead of starting on television, something they desperately need, because there's probably no worse time in NXT's history to be debuting such a big show. So the last couple of weeks TV have been really strong, and I almost feel like if now they sort of intersect with the main roster, it's going to curse them at the worst possible time. And with you, theoretically, you want to be seeing guys making the name and being like, catch them on Wednesday night, but it's almost as if the best way to send people to Wednesday is to send them to your network and say, just watch this week's television show, because Donovan Dijakovic and Keith Lee had an absolute banger, and the women's title program coming up next is going to be great, and there was a huge tag team match with the Street Profits, who you love so much. They're actually doing good things on NXT, so catch them in a few weeks' time. But I do worry about what happens, as we've seen so many times before, when they suddenly find themselves on Raw with nothing to do and no one to fight. But yeah, logically, that makes all the sense in the world.
I will bring things back to Raw in just a second, but do you think one of the big things that we could see WWE reverting back to following All Out is more pyro?
Woof, not sure about that.
No. It would look very obvious. I mean, they've got so much bloody money. So much money.
I always think, as much as we sit here and moan about the fact that we've had opening promos on Raw for years, and granted that's sort of changed a lot more recently, and Paul Heyman's influence has obviously seen us start with banger matches and things like that. But I always felt that, Raw, whether or not it was a good or a bad show, it always felt hyped if you started off with that big pyro show at the start of it all.
Cheap bastards.
With WWE being so much bigger than AEW, could we not have Pyro scare the out of a lone wolf instead of a mere dog and just have Baron Corbin not want to go out, but then be pushed out whether he wants to be there or not against his well-being and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that was the thing that really, really genuinely
Roman
pissed me off.
Reigns.
The big dog.
We've got a bigger, more scared dog than you, so here's some Mortar Blast fireworks.
Recycle pat for Michael Sidgwick, but I did like how there was a sign in the crowd burying the graveyard dogs about an hour before Pharaoh became one. Of all the things to have a go at, I was glad that Karma worked against AEW there because they're the best thing going.
Let's get back to Monday Night Raw, though. Of course, it's the King of the Ring quarterfinals. The Raw side of things sees Ricochet taking on Samoa Joe and Cedric Alexander against Baron Corbin. Thoughts?
Oh, God, I really don't have many at all. Look, Samoa Joe versus Ricochet. That is the match, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of into that. I thought what pay-per-view did they have the match at?
They've all merged into one.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't pin us down on that one.
Stomping Rules. It was good, really good at the finish. Yeah, it's not something that's going to set me on fire, realistically. And Baron Corbin versus Cedric Alexander. Oh, my God. I'm looking forward a lot to the semi-finals because I think the ramifications and the permutations of those two matches could result in an MSG match. That'll be really, really good if it's Cedric versus Ricochet. In front of that crowd, it should be awesome. But my worry is of the King Corbin scenario, the prophecy.
Ricochet is quite an interesting character on the roster currently.
Wrestler.
He's one of the few guys that has better matches on Raw than he does on the pay-per-views. I can think of more times where the Raw rolls on formula actually suits him because he's just done something legitimately more impressive than a standard dive. And he has these sort of, I can kind of recall 5 to 7 minute television matches that have been far more entertaining than the weight of expectation that's been placed on these pay-per-view ones, like that one with Joe that fell afoul of the formula, and the AJ Styles matches that became grinding submission battles rather than just the big spots and the big finish. He looks more like a winner, and I could actually see him beating Samoa Joe here as well but it always falls back to being for the wrong reasons, because the most heartbreak that can be extracted from this Baron Corbin thing is beating Ricochet at the last hurdle. I don't want to think Ricochet's going to win only because it's going to hurt more when he loses, but that's probably where we're going.
So you've got hopefully Cedric and Ricochet. You've got Ricochet and Baron Corbin.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm inclined to agree with you. Purely, I would like to see that, obviously, but I'm inclined to agree with you purely because they planted that seed of the leg injury to Cedric Alexander, and I just feel like they can't help themselves but go back to the Cedric Alexander Drew McIntyre feud.
I think they fancy their cheap, dirty heat in the richest arena, the most beautiful venue that they could possibly run, their home base. And it's like, yeah, let's turn this entire venue on Baron Corbin. In their mind, that sort of audio-visual spectacle is going to be worthy, and it's going to make Baron Corbin feel elevated beyond his current place on the card. Whether or not that works in practice, I don't know, because that's still a very discerning audience. We've all been in that building this year to enjoy New Japan and Ring of Honor, and there is still a crowd that wants the best possible pro wrestling, and Baron Corbin has not and never will be that in spite of all the great banter. So I'm not sure that they're going to get it, but I feel like that's what they're aiming for.
Yeah, I'd be happy with either, to be honest. Baron Corbin, even if it's for one night only, basking in that toxic atmosphere would make for like really good television, and you'd hope more catharsis if Ricochet was to get the win. But I don't know. There's been a big push, seemingly, from Paul Heyman to get Cedric Alexander over. Realistically, they desperately need to give him mic time.
Feels like a project, doesn't it?
Feels like a personal project. They need to give him mic time. They really do, because it's simply impossible to connect as a very good wrestler anymore, because that is like the lowest standard now, taking in the most acclaimed reaches of every promotion.
Well, he got one over on Drew McIntyre when he got like the hell beaten out of him for 10 minutes dressed as a bin man. So he's
smart.
He's the coolest guy on the roster, isn't he?
Smart. Now they need to flesh out his character, give him some mic time. My belief is that they will give him like the MSG platform in a 15-minute total banger with Ricochet, thinking that's enough. It might be, but I'm not entirely convinced.
One person who does need to have a big week, in my opinion, on Monday Night Raw this week is Sasha Banks. This huge return, we saw her attack Natalya, then obviously attack Becky Lynch, and we've seen Becky Lynch respond subsequent to that, and more attacks on Natalya, and that sadistic smile on her face last week as she attacked Natalya post-match. What is next for her? Do you think they have to just now, as everyone seems to be suggesting, move on from this Natalya thing and surely focus on Becky ahead of Clash of Champions?
I don't know. I'm usually really not an advocate for this sort of thing, but they need to do a rematch and a make good for last week, because the idea that Sasha Banks couldn't put, of all performers, Natalya away with the normal version of her finisher, I thought, why protect Natalya at the expense of Sasha and make her do something modified? I would like to see her kill Natalya for all intents and purposes to get her heat back, because, look, I'm a cynic by default. I love the Sasha Banks character. I particularly like the boss Sasha Banks character. It feels like they've Dean Ambrosed her a bit with this cheap heat stuff at the expense of Natalya's dad. Yeah, if they're going to draw a line under it, I would like them to do it more definitively this week and then move on.
I think next week, it's sad that we're previewing a Raw when there's more potentially to talk about next week. But again, Madison Square Garden, the heat, that's where the physicality between Sasha and Becky should break out again. That's where this angled as far as peaked, doesn't it? With Sasha swinging that chair on the outside of the ring on Becky Lynch. To keep them apart for one more week might seem like that usual WWE posturing, but it seems more valuable for me to, as you say, maybe draw a final line under this Natalya thing. Maybe definitively put her on the shelf. Like that match last week was seen as Sasha's dominant win, and it didn't really feel that dominant. So I think that's a great shout to just have a round 2 for them, but for the right reasons. A quick win. Be doing away with Natalya so she plays no further part in this.
Stretch her job.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah. And then you've got the proper heat with her and Becky next week.
Just make her like she can come back and be a sturdy veteran presence on a TV filler program in the next couple of months. She's absolutely not necessary being such a focal part of this program.
She could just leave her lying flat on a table like the Riot Squad did with her dad.
One of the big headlines as we head into Monday Night Raw this week is the return of Rey Mysterio. Yeah. Obviously sort of teased his retirement. Dominic spoke to him about that, and we had this emotional moment a few weeks ago.
I need some stem cells. Like, seriously, am I still in... Oh, no, not really. Anyway, go on.
What do you see them doing with Rey, and where do you see this going with his son?
I didn't hate the tearful...
Holla.
The tearful the moment as much.
I really liked it.
Why not?
I didn't... I thought it was all right. I thought it was... I don't think Rey's return's been that exciting, and this is something that I imagine he'll really want to sink his teeth into. He'll want it to work, and I sense that even if it's a car crash, like that'll be beneficial for making Rey entertaining on television. I don't think his matches are holding up to ricochets, and I think why not go silly with the story? I either want to see Dominic turn on him or be absolutely brutalised by Samoa Joe or a Drew or whoever.
Andrade spinning back elbow.
Yeah, this ends well.
It's pretty effective by the looks of things in other promotions.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, I think like this will be probably the start now of Dominic tiptoeing closer to the ring. They pretty much dropped that WrestleMania front row thing cold, didn't they? Just so Rey could lose quick on the night. So picking all that back up, I'm quite glad of it. I was interested. I was intrigued, and yeah, I'll have more of it. I'll have Rey coming to the ring with Dominic again, getting on Dominic's shoulders at the end. And I don't know, for me, I want the electric chair.
I was going to say electric chair.
I want one day the electric chair drop, but I sense that it's probably going to be some guy just destroying Dominic to build that feud. It's not for you, this one, is it?
What do they need to do to change Rey Mysterio in your eyes?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't know, because he's never been the best actor. Like, he's never been that natural. And asking him to handle this material for me is a bad idea, especially because the evidence of Rey Mysterio being in a storyline with Dominic is very much not the thing to do.
Yeah, he was the second most convincing person at playing Dominic's father in 2005.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how you Rey Mysterio. It's a weird thing how much they've normalised him. It's like, hey, Rey Mysterio's back, and he's doing some bangers, but I don't know, is it the consistency, the lack thereof? I don't know, but yeah, just mask versus hair, get the bloody sun away from it.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think that's something you need with this, because like you say, that in terms of in between the ropes, him and Andrade have been doing phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely dynamite, and it would add stakes and meaning and intrigue to a program that doesn't involve his son, who has not inherited his acting skills, but is somehow even worse.
We've talked a lot about babyface fire in recent weeks, and I know you had a major rant about...
I had a meltdown about Chad Gable.
Looking like a sad puppy. Would it be good if he just comes back and says, look, I've had time away to think about this, and rather than coming down and cutting a promo about how he's happy to be back in WWE and then being interrupted by someone, to just surely come out and call someone out, whether that, whoever that may be?
Yeah. I don't need the melodrama, because he's not really great at material, and I'm not personally inclined to appreciate. just do something that makes him seem like a threat or like someone with a bit of fire, because I'm still got the memory of him getting absolutely annihilated by Bobby Lashley for no reason. That's still the Rey Mysterio I've got on my head. So you can come back, challenge Andrade to a mask versus hair match, and then we'll get a great match with stakes.
It would be quite something if they had as many brilliant matches as they've had this year and never make pay-per-view. It's almost become a bit of a running joke now, hasn't it? It's like, oh, well, maybe they'll be booked for WrestleMania. Oh, no, that's not going to. Maybe they're going to be booked for SummerSlam. Maybe it's going to be a King of the Ring thing because, separate brands, and then suddenly Andrade was moved to whatever. It's just never materialised at the right time for him. It's always been there, almost to serve a different purpose. Recently, it was Andrade's edgier side and angrier side. He's ripping the mask off. He's really awful towards him. And then nothing. We're over to Dominic. We're over to this chapter of Ray's current story. So, yeah, if they somehow actually find their way back to Andrade, I'm all for it, but I'm not actually as optimistic that that's where they'll go. I feel like that match was yet again a means to an end for something else.
One final thing I want to talk about. We are, just under 2 weeks away now from Clash of Champions, where we'll see the Raw Tag Team Champions, Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman, taking on Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. Of course, also we're going to see Seth versus Braun for the Universal Championship.
Weird. What's
going to happen with them?
Which ones?
Are they going to pull the trigger? Which tag team of two people who've never met each other? Are they going to pull the trigger on a turn between Braun and Seth, or is that purely just going to be left to bubble under the surface until the night?
You talk about this first.
Well, so Dolph and... So I was on holiday last week, full disclosure, so I caught up with Raw very late and in abridged format for the first time in about 6 years. It was amazing. I just had to watch highlights. But am I right in thinking that Roode and Dolph's strategy is that the title match is going to go on first, so the champions are going to be too tired to fight them, and it'll be easy pickings?
They don't think that Seth Rollins versus Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship will be the main event of Clash of Champions.
Well, them and the entire internet, I guess. It's yet another show of lack of faith in Seth Rollins' title prospects. But I think that lends itself to Braun losing and then decking Seth and being the latest person to turn on Seth as a tag team partner.
Then Nicholas comes back.
Is that the thing now? Is that it's just like that? Guys win belts with Seth and then turn on him. That'd be Ambrose. That'd be Jason Jordan. Like Braun could lose narrowly, but then be livid about it and just storm off. And then that makes Seth easy pickings. Either way around, this is no good, because you either have that scenario or somehow we have to deal with like a Seth and Braun win and then going on last on a pay-per-view as champions that were able to coexist earlier in the night. So I don't think they've really thought this through, other than the funny gimmick of having like Seth and Braun trying to be WWE's crap version of a boy and his dinosaur. So yeah, I don't care about this. It's
a dork and his mountain.
It's the man's man, the monster among the man's man. Like these two will feature in 2 segments on this pay-per-view, and I think they're the least interesting aspect of this whole show. Like they're carrying half the belts. They're going to feature in the pay-per-view twice. They're going to somehow be required to extract something interesting from some of those boring singles wrestlers that have been put together in a tag match. And I couldn't care less. Sorry. I know I'm maybe sometimes supposed to be the Sidgwick Yang, but like, have you got anything positive on this one? Because I don't care.
I don't care. And it's not just...
It's not Seth stuff. It's not on him for a change.
No.
Also, WWE, I should point out, are calling them brawlins.
Of course you are. The reason why I don't care is because
sick in my mouth when I read that on WWE.com
I
earlier.
have been conditioned to not care about Robert Roode with his bloody mustache and Dolph Ziggler for the best part of this year. Like they can't just do this. They're not allowed to just, all right, they're a tag team now and they're winning, so you're meant to care. Like, no, piss off.
They were going to put AOP in that match as well, by the way. So
it's a good job they bloody didn't. Yeah. Because it already kind of half ruined, all three of the really like buff guy tag teams, the Hoss tag teams. Yeah, they're going to have to do something for a longer time to convince me to give a shit, You
said it's going to happen eventually.
Convince me to give a toss. Because they're two dogs.
Yeah.
And, the one dog plus two dog. One dog plus one dog. How many dogs does that give you? 2, right? It's not one good tag team. It's just 2 dogs. So until they give me reason to care...
it's 4 dogs, because Braun's a dog, Seth's a dog. Like, it's not a great scene, any of this.
I'm looking forward to the King of the Ring stuff, because it's got stakes. It's been like B minus so far tournament.
Yeah.
Some matches have gone too long. Some have gone too short. So I'm looking forward to the King of the Ring stuff. I do think if Ricochet wins, Paul Heyman will use this as a decent narrative crutch to get him over. But this main event scene on Raw is putrid at the moment. Like, I'm sorry, no apologies whatsoever. It's just boring.
Yeah, it's not. I've got to agree. It's not for me. I don't think that had the tag belts not been on them, it would have been any less interesting. I don't think Seth and Braun is a particularly dynamic pairing, and they've
He's got knee chemistry. He's got knee chemistry with anyone except the Shield.
And they've not yet done anything to make me feel any different. I assumed, probably a little bit optimistically, really, that Braun was the type of guy that you just reheat like that. It doesn't matter what's been happening in the last 6 months. He just destroys for you guys and gets a title shot. But as it turns out, that's not the case. He's pretty dull, and he remains pretty dull despite being like loose friends with Seth Rollins at the moment. Neither of these matches at the pay-per-view feel that exciting.
Final question: do they need the Fiend to reheat a Universal Championship?
That's the worry. That is the worry.
The lingering concern, isn't it? That it's time now to pull the trigger. I suppose he's maybe. I think it's Bray Wyatt panic. I think it's the company thinking, well, we screwed that one up so badly before that strike while the iron's hot here, because in their minds they probably still think that it wasn't necessarily all their fault. What happened with Bray Wyatt last time? It wasn't a systemic failure of one man and his imagination. It was this guy that just couldn't get this gimmick over. And it's like, oh, haven't we done right by him? Finally, this Fiend thing is so good. We best do it now, because what if we've lost it by Royal Rumble time? He's a perfect WrestleMania opponent because he can go through to April having not lost a match, and then it matters. Can he win a title? Can this wrestling context that this monster belongs in for some reason actually matter on a grand stage? But that's not WWE, is it? We'll worry about WrestleMania when WrestleMania comes around. We should do this now, and I do worry about that.
Yeah, me too.
Let us know your thoughts ahead of Monday Night Raw in the comments section below, or on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE. And watch it. They can follow all three of us. You can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow Michael Sidgwick at
Sidgwick.
You can follow me at Adam Wilbourn. You can follow us all at WhatCulture WWE, and make sure you subscribe to What Culture Wrestling for daily wrestling podcasts too. This has been the Raw preview. My thanks to the Dadley Boyz. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.